Hi, I'm Gordon Lightfoot.
I know you.
The reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. First it was 71 Yorkville. Anybody remember 71 Yorkville? It was a chest.
Werner Graber.
Well, I was going to get around to that. Werner Graber.
Oh my goodness.
71 Yorkville. It was a chess club. In that club played a duet, Malka and Yoso. Well, they played that place for about a year and a half, and all of a sudden somebody started thinking, but why don't we do another copy of this? And so they did. They did the Village Corner, except it was about 5 blocks up the road, up at Pierce Avenue. I'm speaking loud so you can hear me. This thing is muffled. It is muffled. I'd hate to have to do a tune, you know.
We can hear you.
Kind of a Christmas feeling. Anyway, the Village Corner was right at the beginning, the dawn of the folk revival that occurred in 1960 and lasted until 1963, when the Beatles came along and blew us all out of airtime. During that time, there were television shows. There was one done here right in Canada by a guy named, what the heck was his name? A guy that produced Let's Sing Out. Oscar Brand did it. Oh my goodness. A couple of big ones in the States. There was the Hootenanny. Ian and Sylvia appeared on that one. My manager wouldn't let me appear on it. He didn't think I was ready. When they asked me to sing at the Grammy Awards, he said I wasn't ready. That was Al Grossman. He was one of the most amazing people I ever met. The first time that he ever came to listen to me play, because they were getting ready to offer me a management contract at that time, they came to the Purple Onion. They came to the Purple Onion to audition. And they sat on kegs. They sat on like flower kegs with cushions on them. It was a very tight room. A very tight room. I worked for Al Lastman, I worked for Mel, and I worked for Sam Lastman before the three brothers were around. One of them went on to become one of our very colorful mayors in a little different way than Rob Ford did, but just as colorful and just as popular. Mel Lastman. They owned the Village Corner. They're people. Purple Onion. And they let me in. They gave me a date there, and I went in and did very successfully. The one show in there and got my audition in and got my management contract set before me. But being the conservative kind of Canadian that I am, I had to think about it for 3 months, and finally, Ian Tyson, my friend, talked me into signing the contract. Ian Tyson talked me into it. And he and Sylvia had just done 2 of my songs on their latest album. And they had presented these songs to Peter, Paul, and Mary in New York, who were also managed by Albert Grossman, and the songs got recorded, and the next thing I knew, I had one at number 5 in the Billboard chart, down there, south of the border. And, then came the management contract, and I signed, and the next thing I knew, I was a working stiff, and I had a band, and I better write songs, and I did. I wrote 5 albums in 5 years.
Fantastic.
One of the highlights of the whole thing was, and I'm going to get back a little bit back to Yorkville again. It was the Mariposa Folk Festival, and I remember Jerry Gray and his band, the Travelers, so very well and distinctly and vividly performing at the Mariposa Folk Festival and at night in the outdoors with a crowd of about 10,000 people, doing a whole repertoire of songs, not just This Land Is Your Land. They had a fabulous repertoire. When the folk revival began, the Travelers had already started. They'd started a long time ago. They had a huge repertoire down east folk songs and stuff from a lot of maritime folk songs. They were already doing these things, so they fell into the folk revival with a great gusto, I would say, Jerry, wouldn't you? The Travelers. They were. And Ian and Sylvia. The highlights, and everybody was there. Grossman was there, and John Cort was there, and everybody, you know, John Cort he was Albert's partner. It was just a really wonderful time. I did not make the first Mariposa Folk Festival because my partner Terry Whalen and I, the Two Tones, who actually recorded, made an album, a live album at the Village Corner with dialogue that made it look kind of like a Smothers Brothers. That's what they were doing. At that time on television, I remember some of the lines that Les Pouliot wrote for us for the patter. One of them was, we were getting ready to do Dark as a Dungeon, and the entrance to it was, there have been many graphic songs written about the coal mines. Well, you know. How did I get here? I was supposed to perform too, but we ran into a bit of trouble in the middle of the recording session, and there was an actor by the name of Joel Austin was in the audience that night, and we started getting into a little trouble. And he said in his actor's voice, he said, "Good God, we built a canal at Panama with less trouble than this." So that's all on the record and everything. So Terry and I, we broke up after that because I didn't want a partner, and you know, it's just one of those things, you know. Mutual pooling of talents, we tried writing together. We tried writing apart. He tried writing, I started writing, and by golly, I tell you, I was working on a country music show at the time as a square dancer and a choral performer called Country Hoedown. Because I was doing a lot of gigs, I was doing a lot of different stuff. I was working on TV as a choral performer, and doing the coffee houses at night, and doing all that kind of stuff. It was just a very heady, wonderful experience. Riverboat fell into the picture, and the Riverboat took over from everybody, and they ran for about 10 years after that, right through the end of the... Meanwhile, Yorkville was growing up all around it, and the old houses were staying there, but they still are there, aren't they? I don't go there that often. Are they still there? Are the old houses still in the old roses? They tell me they had to take out a graveyard to build that housing development back in the 18th century. Is that true? They wound up in the Rosedale Valley, and some of the bodies got washed out during Hurricane Hazel in 1956. People called the police and said there's bodies lying by the road out in Rosedale Valley. But anyway, that's one of those side stories, I guess. But you know, look at it now. I mean, look at Yorkville now. My goodness gracious, what a lot. You know, you can knock out like 10 million just for a condo. I mean, I wouldn't do it personally myself. You know, I wouldn't have any kind of bread either. But then there's a great big one that's about 50 stories tall on the northeast corner. I watched them build that from my office up at Yonge and St. Clair every day. When I drive into to my office to go to to the city parking lot to go to my office, which I do 4 days a week, because when I'm not touring, I run a company. During the time of Yorkville, I had creative management in New York. I had a guy there who would walk down 7th Avenue and make a record deal for you. And they did that. They got me on United Artists and their contract. We worked our way through that. By God, the next thing they signed me with was Warner Brothers out in LA, and I went on to make 14 more albums after that. It just went, you know. It's no wonder that the worst part of it is the whole thing is in the middle of it all. I had to give give up alcohol. So I drank it. The trouble was, it was killing me. It was actually killing me. As it did my friend Janis Joplin eventually. But then I think she drank more than I did. And I drank a bottle a day until 1982. But I was driver 23 years. But then when I almost died in 2002, I was out of business for 2.5 years. I had a glass of wine and blew the whole thing out down at George Bigliardi's restaurant one night. I had a glass of wine, and I broke a 23-year dry stretch. Oh, have I drank since? Have I drank since? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. But I remember, best of all, the best and the most memorable day I ever had was when I went out to Stompin' Tom Connor's house and spent the afternoon there with Stompin' Tom, and he had a very unique place. He had a 2,500 song digital converted jukebox. And when I walked in there, he had 5 of my tunes playing. He had it set up like a bar with a his and hers. He had a pool table. He had chairs, tables, and a moonroof. And he said, Gordy said, I used to sit out here in the moonlight and write songs for the moonlight. And this guy wrote about 500 or 600 songs. He's had 40, 50 albums. Something I was a great fan of Stompin' Tom Connor's. I was sorry when he died. I went to his memorial and did a tune there, which is just a while ago. But I had 5 moose heads that afternoon. 5 moose heads. With Stompin' Tom, and boy, he had no trouble at all. He was thin as a fence post his whole life, and he loved to drink beer. And boy, he thrived. And what a great songwriter he was. Okay, how have I done here? And Yorkville goes on. Training exercise. It was a training exercise. Do like 3 sets a night in the riverboat and stuff. Not a big deal. You know, you'd play until your chops were almost falling off. Your chops were almost falling off. You know what I mean? And there we go. Had a great time. I'm still not. Gee, what? Am I? Did I come here to speak? Because I wasn't sure if I was going to be playing or what the hell was going There's a lot of people here that I know. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gordon, for that. Now, if the audiovisual gods are